Then we go that one. No, it's not that one. It's this one. There we go. Found the right button. Hello, everybody. Welcome to CocoaHeads number 181. And it is the last one for 2024. Hooray! Oh. Don't worry, we'll be back next year as always. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening next month. But this is our last presentation night for this year. So we'll kick off. In the spirit of reconciliation, Melbourne CocoaHeads would like to pay our respects to elders past and present. And we would love to acknowledge their contribution to land, sea and country. I can never remember that off the top of my head. No, I did. I did pretty well. Cool. That's good. Tonight, 2 presentations tonight. Ryan's going to take us through monetizing your iOS app. Baz is going to talk to us about CarPlay. It's going to be a great night. Hopefully we won't hang around too long tonight. I think the talks will be really good and engaging. Right? No pressure? Yeah, we good? It's a running joke. Every month I pick whatever the most appropriate SF symbol is, and very often there are no appropriate SF symbols, so I just go with the coolest one. It's car, yeah, see? Button. A reminder too that we run these events under a code of conduct, and that applies equally online as it does in person. The long and the short of it is, please be nice to each other. Let me turn off that so you can see the URL. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, or if there's anything you'd like to feed back, you can find myself, one of the other organisers who normally have badges on, but I don't think we have badges around at the moment. Or there are anonymous feedback or email forms on the website if you prefer to report something that way. Next slide. A little bit of housekeeping for those in the room. The toilets are back out past the elevators and turn right. The emergency exits, same ways, back out past the elevators, turn right, not to the toilets. If you hit the toilets, you've gone too far. Although you might also have an emergency that way too, I don't know. Name tags, I don't think we have the stickers, do we? Yeah, we do? Oh, cool. So we do have are they blue again? Yes. Blue? We do have the blue stickers out. If this is your first time, feel free to pop one on if you feel comfortable doing so. And if you see somebody wearing a blue sticker, please make them feel welcome. Look out for them. The organisers normally have a badge or something on, a t-shirt or a t-shirt, yeah. Something with our logo, but you'll find them floating around as well. Questions, just to help, we do run these events, as I mentioned before, for those in the room, online and in person. To help the evening flow a little bit easier for everybody. Unless the speaker says so, please hold your questions until the end. And then pop your hand up, we'll bring a microphone around to capture the audience so that everybody can hear the question, otherwise it gets a bit awkward. If you are watching online, please feel free to pop your questions in right there in the YouTube chat or in the Melbourne Meetup channel on Slack, and there'll be details for joining Slack in the coming slide. Should rearrange that in other words. Yeah, covered everything that's on there. I should have skipped this slide. I don't think I have stickers. Actually, I do think I have stickers. I'll find the stickers and put them out somewhere for us. Help yourself to stickers. No. I need funding for that. We'd love to thank our sponsors for their support. As we mentioned, this is our last presentation night for 2024. Our sponsors have been with us since all year, and in many cases in last year and in years past. So big thank you to Mentor Group for providing this space, as well as being our gold sponsor for 2024. And to the REA Group for being our silver sponsor for 2024 as well. Right, other things that are going on. I did do that right. As usual, we normally run an end of year Christmas party / end of year celebration sort of thing in conjunction with our friends over at GDG. This year it is being held at the Royal Melbourne Hotel, which is just up here on Burke Street near Burke and King. There will be food, there will be drinks, there will be good times, other things. I don't think we've finalised anything that's happening just yet, but yeah. If you want to come along to that, the QR code will take you to the Try Booking website to grab a ticket. Tickets are $5, I think, which will be donated to one of the charities. I don't think we decided in the end which one it was going to. An appropriate charity. It's just to cut down on no-shows and all of that sort of stuff. So $5 to charity is a good thing. And yeah, so that's on our normal night, so it'll be the second Thursday, which is the 12th of December, from 6:30 p.m., which I don't think is on the slide. 6:30 p.m. But yeah, details via the QR code, or if you go to our normal meetup.com website, you'll find the event details there and you can follow it through. So that's coming up next month. A little bit sooner than that, next week we have our regular coding night on the third Wednesday of the month. Again, this is something held in conjunction with GDG. It's in this room. We have some nice tables out. Bring your laptop along. It's an all ages alcohol-free event. So yeah, bring your laptop, bring your projects. If you just want to come and learn and meet people, you can also do that too. Family-friendly sort of thing. Wednesday the 20th, next week, Wednesday. Yeah, about 6 o'clock again, same as always. The other one that we run monthly is the social night. This is at Brick Lane Brewing. Brick Lane Brewing? Yep. Which we tried last month and was apparently really well received. Hopefully the weather is decent. We're on the rooftop there. Maybe. Or something.
26th of June.
Oh, bloody hell. There's always a date mistake. No, it's not. I am Jesse. It could be. New Jesse. It is the 25th of November, sorry. No, 26th of November. So I got the date right, I got the month wrong. I will fix that for the closing. 26th of November, Tuesday the 26th of November, the last Tuesday of the month is our social night. That's just at as we said, it's at the brewery. You can bring laptops, but it's probably not great for it. Just come and meet your fellow engineers and designers and anybody else that we work with who wants to come and catch up. It's good fun. I think that's, not quite me yet. Some other groups that we partner with. There is obviously GDG Melbourne that we run other events with, the Christmas party and the coding night. We work closely with them on a lot of things. Around the country, there is the Sydney CocoaHeads folks that we work with as well. And there's also the AUNZ CocoaHeads.social website, which lists all CocoaHead groups across Australia and New Zealand. If you happen to be travelling and want to meet up with other people, other of our colleagues. Which I think leads me on to how to find us. We have a website, obviously. We have Slack, which is where most of our socialising and communication happens. It's quite busy during the day, talking various things. We share the Slack instance now with other CocoaHeads groups across the country and New Zealand. So you can talk, with folks in Sydney and Brisbane and Auckland and Wellington, I think. But it's fairly busy. Our channels in there are #Melbourne or anything prefixed with Melbourne, but there's also channels for Swift, Swift UI, Objective-C, AppKit, anything you've got questions about and need help with. There's a lot of people around who are usually pretty happy to help with that. Again, the QR code can help you get there, or you can find a link from our website. We're not on Twitter or X or anything anymore. We are on Mastodon. That's our Mastodon link at the bottom there. It's at Melbourne at CocoaHeads.social. We usually just announce events and stuff on there. But yeah, follow along for updates on things. Is this my last slide? No. Well, I basically went through that. We have the Melbourne specific channels. So the Melbourne Meetup one is the one for tonight if you have questions for this event. We have a volunteers channel to help run and organise things. There's usually a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but it's all in that channel. And there's jobs channels, speakers channels, always looking for speakers, although we're not looking for speakers for the next 2 months, because that's our time off. But we will be back again in February, and we'll be looking for speakers for February and March and so on, all the way through. So if you have a presentation idea, big or small, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, doesn't matter. Anything vaguely related to what we do or the people in this community might find interesting is welcome. And if you're nervous about speaking, we're more than happy to help with some mentorship as well to help you proofread slides or practice all of that sort of stuff. All right, that's the end of me then, finally. So I'd like to welcome Ryan up, who's going to talk to us about monetizing our apps.
Hey everyone. Yep, my name's Ryan, and today I'm going to go through kind of my experiences of monetizing iOS apps. Kind of everything that I wish I was told when I started out. So if you're starting out or you're partway through your journey, then hopefully this will save you a year or two. And so iOS apps, they can kind of be very bad, some of them, where they have like hard paywalls and they monetize in very horrible ways, and so hopefully I've stayed away from that. I think I have, but obviously you guys can decide. But hopefully take what you like and leave the rest. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of background on me. So I got into consumer apps back in 2016 when I joined a car insurance startup in the UK called Cover, where we used to sell car insurance, or still do sell an hour of car insurance in a couple of taps on a phone. It takes like 20 seconds and it costs a few dollars or pounds. And yeah, so I didn't know how to code there, but then this is me down here. I had a lot more hair back then. And yeah, so I didn't know how to code back then. I was in the marketing team, as you can tell by the fact that I was wearing a cap on my head. And yeah, so back then, that kind of grew, learned how to market apps, learned how to build the the customer support team, and then the data team. And then it got really big, and then I just kind of got to the point where I felt like a little cog in a machine. I wasn't learning as much as I wanted, and I wanted to, there he is. I wanted to kind of take the learnings that I had and then try and apply it to my own app. And whilst I was there, on the way to and from work every day, I was learning how to code. So that was back in the UI kit and storyboard days. And that was horrible, but that was my adventure into coding. And so I left there. Whilst I was there, I was starting to build an app called Daily Prompt. It's an app, a creative writing app for aspiring authors. And it kind of gives them new story ideas every single day. And the whole goal is to write a short story, share it with the community, and rinse and repeat. Think of it like a social network for aspiring authors. And that's not what it looked like day one. This is what it looked like day one. It was absolutely terrible, but in my mind, that was beautiful. And I genuinely looked at that and thought, this is going to the top of the App Store. So I learned that I wasn't very good at judging what was good and what was bad. So yeah, that was that. I did that for a few years. That still runs to this day. And the second app is Outside. It's a countdown app where you can count down to help you plan your upcoming events and count down to all the events, holidays, plans you've got with your friends and family. Both of these apps have made not quite $500,000, but hundreds of thousands of dollars in total. And so in this talk, I'll kind of go through how I did that. And then how you can kind of break that down into like 3 stages, because there's like quite a lot you kind of want to get right, and this kind of just breaks it down into those steps that you want to take along the way. And a kind of few ground rules along the way is this is purely consumer-facing apps. No, I've never done B2B, don't know how to do it, won't even try. It's all done based on the freemium business model. So there's no pure hard paywall. There's no, you have to pay £3 to download the app. It's just you get part of the app for free, and then we sell you on certain features that you might want to pay for later on. And when you kind of approach that business model, it's good that you if people pay, that's typically people pay for a good start. My apps are typically halfway in the middle, and think about what do you need to be focusing on two things that you kind of need to overlay to kind of get a good start on this. So solve a problem. Don't just build something because it's cool. Like, this is about monetizing an app. This isn't about building a side project, and they're two different things. So what problem am I solving? For Daily Prompt, the creative writing app, it wasn't writing prompts. That's not a problem people have. It's like, I want writing prompts. That's some surface level thing someone's asking for. The problem they're having is they have writer's block and they don't know how to start writing. And that's the problem, that's the solution that I'm selling to them. And then how will people find out about it? Great if it's a problem, but then if no one knows how to find you in the first place, it's kind of a dead end. And so back to Daily Prompt, I found out about 60,000 people a month search for it in Google for writing prompts. There aren't, it's a weird niche, trust me. And obviously they're not typing in how to solve writer's block, that's less focused on. But the writing prompt is the thing that's kind of telling you there's demand for this, and it wasn't clear that there was a good solution to it. And so that was the point where I was like, okay, clearly something that I can solve, and there's plenty of demand for it. Going back to Outside. So Outside, like I say, it's a countdown app, and the future that we want to see is we want to see more people getting outside, meeting friends, getting out of the world and having fun. That's kind of like what we want to do. So we started out with this. It's beautiful. You can see who, if any of your friends are around, you tap on them, you say, hey, I'm around, anyone want to hang out? That didn't work. So we pitched and we pivoted a bit so you could see what events your friends are up to. That didn't work. Next, this is like 2 years ago, AI was kicking off. AI event planner, didn't work. Then we went for a countdown app. So it's like you're planning holidays, things that you're looking forward to. Okay, let's pivot to that. That worked. Thousands of users, lots of people searching for it. Okay. Same rough idea, different approach. We've hit on something, and now we're just iterating on that and making it better, improving it, and evolving on the idea over time. So the acquisition part of the 0 to 1K is you only need, if you say 1% to 10% paying $20 to $80 in price, so you need about 1,000 users to get to that stage. And you can kind of get through this, it's kind of like put your hustle hat on and just kind of go out there and see what sticks, essentially. And so you're posting on social networks, trying to find people to download it. Reddit has been really good, and it's still to this day is like when we speak to users, it's like where our top users all come from, like 70, 80% of the time. People just are searching for the best countdown app. And we have dominated the comments. So Outside is the best countdown app, apparently, according to Reddit. And then you can launch on Product Hunt and other similar websites. And then App Store optimization for this stage is normally really good. You're at a disadvantage because if you're just launching now, how long your app has been on the App Store matters and helps, and how many ratings you have. That's a whole rabbit hole you can go down into, and it's definitely something I would suggest for the first 1,000 downloads. For Daily Prompt, it's still the biggest amount of downloads we get. So if you search writing prompts, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in America and in the UK, we're number 1 and number 2, and that's what all the traffic comes from, all the revenue as well. So app figures, give that a go. You can find out what people are searching for, what demand there is. Just rinse their free trial, and you can just go through there and just have fun and just find out, is there any demand for the thing that you're selling? So Outside would be an example where no one's searching for how to meet up with friends, or meet up with friends more often. That was not a thing. Countdown app, similar idea, solves the same problem. You're going on holiday, you're meeting up with friends, but that was the search term that turned out to be valuable. So the onboarding. So back to ground rule, onboarding super important. You have no data, you have no users, or you have a few users. So you have assumptions. You have assumption of what people want. You have assumption of what someone wants. So you have to try and give that, whatever that is, to them. So you search for writing prompts, you probably want writing prompts. I should give you writing prompts. So that's the idea of your onboarding, is to just try and solve that problem as quickly as possible, as best as you can, and then surprise them, hopefully, in some way that you've over-delivered on what they want. So by the time they get to the end of that paywall, end of that onboarding, they're like, yeah, I'll give this a go. It solves my problem. And so getting started off, if you need inspiration or any ideas, this website is incredibly good. It pretty much has every screenshots of every app that's good in the App Store. Well, not everyone, it doesn't have my apps, but it they have a lot of screenshots, and you can just go by flows, and you can just look at all of the onboarding screenshots for certain apps and how they onboard someone. So that's something I use all the time. And then at the end of the paywall, end of the onboarding, add your paywall. And this is critical. This will save you 1 year of time, which I'll show you in a second. Just put a paywall in there. From day one, without a question, like if you're going to build the app, put a paywall in. And this will tell you if it's valuable or not. And so 2 things you can use for that. One is Superwall, and one is Revenue Cap. And they will handle all of the in-app purchases for you, either one. Superwall is kind of my go-to. And because they can handle showing the paywalls, you never build a paywall. They have templates of every paywall pretty much ever built, and you can just kind of click through which ones that you want to show. You can A/B test them. There's so much you can do, and this is more important for when you get to like 10,000 or to 100,000. Like the Superwall comes in super important. You think people come into your app for, and then you can watch their behavior in the app, what they're doing, and then you can actually get an understanding of what do they actually want, because that might be very different. So getting the analytics in the app to see that, and then also talking to users to see, does that match up with when I talk to them of what they want. And so year 1 of me building an app and launching it. There we go, got loads of downloads. That's my first 1,000 downloads. But if I listened to someone give a talk, I would have had revenue. I had 0 revenue because it's a product that was getting better. I was improving it all the time. I had no paywall in the app, I had nothing. And so I wondered why this business wasn't growing. Nothing more to add. So the next phase is more focused on the everything that came before. So you kind of want to do like a loop. Imagine it if you're kind of like, you have the idea, you're obviously always continually trying to get users. And then on the onboarding, you're always trying to feed back the learnings you have into that onboarding. So we've probably rebuilt the onboarding like 10 times, and I hate it, but it makes a huge impact every single time. And then in this phase, it's the more paywalls, feature gating one. So you're going to, I'll get into that in a second. A few bits, so you're going to be iterating on the product, which I'm sure you've heard many times before, which is about getting someone to the magic moment on onboarding, which I'll talk about in a second. From that, you want to find out what is the thing that you want to be doubling down on. So is it you need more features? Is it you need one feature done better? Like TikTok, they didn't need to add more features. They just need to get you hooked within like 2 videos. And so there's a very difference between the two. And then, like I say, acquisition, not so much going to go into that for this talk. App Store optimization is something you can continually go down if there's enough demand for your search terms. And so more paywalls, more people that see your paywall, more people that typically pay. Not always true, but these 3 things that seem to be pretty much true. So for daily prompts, 10% more revenue by putting that crown at the top of the screen. So if people like the app within 1 day, they typically just tap that crown button and they're like, cool, I like this, I'll pay. And that's sort of no feature changes or anything. 10% uplift by adding a welcome offer. We offer a discount for the first 48 hours and it just counts down. Another 10% uplift in revenue. And then in the settings section, just having a way that people can pop in and for whatever reason, 5% uplift in revenue. That's adding no features, no nothing. You're just getting more eyeballs in the app and you're then understanding, or if someone then pays, you're then understanding that you're solving a problem for someone. And then based off of that, you can then try and speak to them more and then just keep doubling down on what that is. The magic moment. So this has been said a million times before by many other people, and it's about most people delete your app on the first day, within the first hour, and so you need to very quickly provide value to them. And what is that thing? So for us, for writing prompts, is to get you to get a writing prompt that you like. If you are a countdown app, you probably downloaded the app to count down to a certain event. So you need to get you to add that event as quickly as possible. And so that's the magic, well, not the magic moment, that's just like the good moment. But it doesn't look like this. It isn't some wonderful magic moment that you just see and you're like, aha, this is what I should optimize for. It looks like this. It looks like data. And this is why the first point was super interesting, like super important to get the analytics in, is because what you want to do now, you've got 1,000 people in your app, and you want to see what are they doing. And then, once you see what they're doing, you want to see what makes someone enjoy my app more than other people. And so this is a retention graph to say how often does someone come back. So 1 week later here, you can see between about 40% and 60% of people come back a week later. And the layers in the lines are based on how many events they have in the app. You can guess which direction it goes. If you have more events in the app, the better your retention is. So we know that's a clear indicator. We only found that out. Well, you'd think it through common sense, but this just double checks that. But then we also found out that if you add a widget, your retention is better. If you sync your calendar to the app, which then if you add the event to outside, it goes to your calendar. If you add it in your calendar, it comes back to outside. If you do that, your retention goes up again. If you do all three, your retention is huge. So we took those learnings and we went back to our onboarding and we gave them a little hello welcome screen. We then let them add their event straight away. They couldn't do anything else. They downloaded the app because they want to count down to an event. So you let you put that in. We'll give you some nice UI, do whatever you want. Straight away as they do that, you can't see it here, there's some wonderful animation that tells you to add your widget. See the continue button looks disabled there because we know you haven't added your widget yet because you have to leave the app to add your widget. So you go out the app, it's not actually disabled, you can tap it. But if you go out the app, maybe you add your widget, maybe you don't, you come back to the app. We now show the button doesn't look disabled, so now you're going to tap it. But if you have added your widget, it will auto push you through it. So just a small little thing is like people would just tap continue all day long. So you need to like break them out of that habit. They see a disabled button and they're like, oh, I want to add a widget anyway, so I'm going to tap it. So then we would explain to them what calendar sync is because they don't know what it is. They're probably not interested in it, but they might be. And then they set it up or they dismiss it. And then on this screen here, you then pick which events you want to sync. And you'll see here at the top, we had a little bit which says sync up to 5 events because we saw the magic number is about 5 events. If we get you to 5, you're going to stick around. And so now if you've got your widget, you've added your first event and you've synced 5 events to outside, you're going to stick around a long time. And so this was kind of how we took those analytics, those insights, and brought it back to the onboarding. And like I say, this was probably the 10th time of us doing this, and this is the current state of it. Feature gating, tell you a little, show you a very quick one from Daily Prompt. This was Daily Prompt about 2 years ago. And this button here was where you'd get access to our library of prompts. So you tap that, you'd see 300 plus prompts at the time, and we would then explore around, but when you tap to write for them or view them, you'd hit a paywall. Only about 10% of people we saw were doing that. So I thought, I'm smart, I'll add a tab. So I added a tab for it instead of adding a button for it, and increased revenue by 50%. And so we knew by instinct that people were coming for the app for prompts, so we would just make it more obvious to them. And the problem beforehand wasn't the prompts, it was the fact they couldn't discover them. So small thing, revenue jumped by 50%.
Do you mind if I stop you there? This is about to run out of memory again, so I'm just going to swap it out quickly.
Nice. Pausing.
Is it good to use this?
Everything before stays true. You're finding out what features people want, the onboarding, what you should be focusing on. But here you're adding a lot of, like I say, really focus on the day 1 to maybe week 1 of usage. Really try and understand what the user's doing. Look at the analytics, talk to users, rinse and repeat. And then acquisition, like I say, there's so much you can do on there. But from the product perspective, you really, on this layer, want to add on the paywall A/B testing, because now you should have a fairly good amount of people come into the app. So now making a few tweaks on the paywall can make a huge difference. Like literally, we did one change of changing the call to action button, and opting into premium went up by 30% for 10 minutes of time. But obviously, this makes a lot of difference when you're already making like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 than if you're making $100. So this is where it starts to make a big difference. And then you can start playing with price testing because you have enough data to run tests like this. For example, we have a test running right now where we was charging $20, now we're charging $30. There's no difference in opt-in rate. It's just another 50% of revenue. And so that test has to play out yet, but it looks pretty promising. And there's just all these silly things that as developers, like you just gloss over because you're like, people will pay if I create a great product. But I think as indie developers, you typically undersell yourself. And the market will tell you what they're willing to pay, so long as you're not doing it in a scammy way. So paywall testing, Superwall, price testing as well. They handle all the analytics or everything for you. They have the stats. They even have a feature where you just, this isn't paid by the way, they even have a feature where you can just auto pick the best one. So you could just set 5 paywalls to run. You need enough data for it. And they'll just keep the best one running at all time. There's just so many great features, and you can show the pop-up of the paywall at any point, depending on which feature you want to gate or not gate, without pushing any code changes. So literally from 10 to 100K is actually probably easier, I'd say, than the first bit. 0 to 10K is like super hard because it's the problem and it's the talking to users and it's the iterative cycle. But then when you get a bit of a habit going and just really focusing on that, then it gives you way more time and testing and data to learn more to get going. That's kind of where I'm at the minute. So I won't talk any further. So from me is if you want to check anything out that we do, check out this app. It's called Outside. It's a countdown app. But you can use it with your friends, your family. You can basically now organize my whole life on it. And a goal of the future is to get everyone outside and having a great time. Thank you.
Marcelo, do you have a question? We'll start over there.
I just wanted to know if you have any wise magical advice on where to define what is free and what is not.
Feature-wise?
Yeah, feature-wise.
So I think depends on the app, but it's kind of like you want something that that they clearly want, that isn't too hard to give them, that they can come back every day. So a common feature, so Strava, which is a fitness app, they let you log your runs and your cycling and that for free every day. You can see your stats. But if you want to see, explore lots of places on the map, which is something that you're not going to do every single day, they're the kind of things that, the one-off things that might be super features. So I think try get them with a retention hook that keeps them coming back every day for free, and then charge for the premium, the fancier features.
Thanks. That's what I was looking for.
Thanks for the talk. I was wondering how you go about, as a small indie developer, balancing customer support, customer discussion with, engineering. Does that become a challenge?
I just look in the mirror and then bounce it off myself. It's the hardest thing is talking to users and believing users when you talk to them, because as a developer you have an inkling for what you want and what you believe, and a lot of the time you can go around in your own head and you think you know what's best, but you don't actually talk to any users. And then you talk to a user and the issue was just one little simple bug that you never tested, and that's the problem.
I've got one. What's next? Have you got other ideas, or is it just to refine the existing?
100K to 1 million. No, it's outside, so that's what we're focused on. That's the 10-year project that we want to build. And so building web invites, building Android, we've got some, I was joking about that AI thing earlier, but we've got this really cool thing coming out. So we now know a fair bit about you because some people have 10 to 100 events. We know what you do, what you're into, and so we can give people very, very personalized insights of what to do. And now it's kind of like, it's not public yet, but I actually spend a lot of my free time doing those suggestions. It's very cool.
Have you ever played with the model of instead of subscriptions, paying with like pay full price for a version, and then you ask for another price for another version? You know, the old model of software.
So having a hard, like you can't
like
even touch
full
the app?
price models. I just wonder how it plays out as a developer in your business models.
I've never done it. It's kind of, I think a lot of this stuff is that I've said today, and like have learned is like it's sometimes just try not to be smart for it, and so like do what's common, because like consumers like to jump around apps and kind of know what to expect. And I think because of how the last 5-10 years have played out, people kind of expect freemium apps. So I don't have much experience, but that kind of is my gut instinct.
Thank you, Ryan.
We'll get Buzz plugged in. Put that in the pocket. Start myself.
Oh, go ahead, play. All right, good to go.
Go for it.
Alrighty. Hi everybody, I'm Barry with the final talk of 2024, which is good. Actually, first of all, I want to shout out to Ryan because I realised while we were talking there, I've actually got outside with a little widget on my phone doing my countdown to my holiday in 40 days and 13 hours time. I will be in Fiji. I'll be leaving for Fiji then. Good up. But I've only got 2 events. I think probably because I'm just don't do very much. I should put CocoaHeads in there. So, yeah, going to talk about CarPlay. You've used CarPlay probably, but you probably haven't written an app for it. So let's go through that. First of all, a little overview about what CarPlay is. CarPlay lets you access many parts, but not all parts of apps. So in messages, for example, someone sends you a photo, CarPlay will say something like, Rob said, this is the place, and send a photo, but it won't actually show you the photo. It could show you the photo, it can draw images on screen, but that might distract you when you're driving, so it doesn't do it, which is fair enough. All the logic for CarPlay apps runs on the phone, so it's essentially a second screen for your app, is the way to think about it. But you don't really know what that screen is going to look like. Sometimes you might have a big touch screen, it's just essentially like an iPad size screen. Sometimes you get small screens, sometimes you get rectangles, sometimes you get squares, sometimes you get squares inside circles, which that's, Fletch is familiar with this one. That's actually against Apple's guidelines because they say you shouldn't have car UI on the screen at the same time as CarPlay or on the same screen. But I think Minis get an exception for lots of things, which is fair enough. All of that is essentially irrelevant to you as a developer. Like you're just dealing with a rectangle. You don't really care about the screen, except some screens you can't touch, some you can. Some screens you can't scroll. Like they don't accept the scroll gesture. Some do. So essentially you can't really make any hardware assumptions. Next generation CarPlay was announced a couple of years ago, I think. It was supposed to be out in 2024. There's no signs of any vehicles coming out with it yet, but hopefully soon. There's a really good design talk from WWDC this year. The design language of next generation CarPlay, it's really nice. Like, it's a gorgeous looking thing. We'll have to see how it works for real, but it's really cool, and it'll be interesting to see how that works with existing apps and how you can make your app work with both at the same time. Is it going to use the same frameworks? We don't know yet. So now we know the landscape about CarPlay, we can start to build. Did that animate? Yeah. We can start to build for it, but actually we can't. CarPlay is a bit different to other things. You can't just knock it up and start trialing it within 5 minutes, because you've got to apply to Apple for special permissions to get a particular entitlement added to your Apple account to allow CarPlay to work at all. And you've got to apply for a specific bundle ID and a specific type of entitlement. And when Apple respond, that could take a couple of weeks, because it's a manual process you got to go through, and you got to add that provisioning profile to your app. You've got to create a provisioning profile, and then you got to add it to your entitlements. So you got to add that thing there, com.apple.developer.carplay driving task. It gives you the XML to do these things in the documentation. You don't have to fiddle about with it. But notice that says CarPlay driving task. What's that all about? Before you even make the request to Apple to get that entitlement, you've got to know exactly what you're asking for. And there's various different types of apps or types of CarPlay entitlements that you're allowed to ask for. Audio, communications, driving task, charging, fueling, maps, parking, quick ordering. That's it. If your app doesn't do one of those things, you can't have it on CarPlay. Just not allowed. Like, you can't have games on there. Some of those are really obvious what they are, like Spotify for audio, WhatsApp for communications, Google Maps, like Wilson Parking have a parking app, stuff like that. So they're usually pretty obvious what you're asking for. This is just a slide to shout out Zach from Sydney CocoaHeads, because he made a fueling app, which has got a really nice CarPlay implementation. Not if you're in Victoria, because the Victorian government hasn't mandated that fuel prices have to be published through an API. Everyone else has. So they get the nice things and we don't. It's not Zach's fault, it's the Victorian government's fault. So don't blame Zach for that. And I also like that Zach used a street that I used to live on in his marketing screenshots in Woolloomooloo. So that's quite cool. And one thing to know about this is it's got a tab bar at the top. So just remember that. We'll come back to that in a minute. In the case of what I was building, I wasn't entirely sure if we were going to be building a driving task app or a navigation app or a parking app. It was fairly obvious, but we could have made a case for some of those. So we'll zoom out a little bit to see why we ended up with a driving task app. So this is our use case. I work for a company called HDS who do deliveries, usually chilled deliveries. So if you've ordered a box of those sort of prepared meals, pretty decent chance that we delivered those to your house. Hopefully it was on time. So there's a lot of delivery trucks and vans flying around. Therefore CarPlay could be useful for those. I'm not sure what percentage of the trucks and vans actually have CarPlay capable systems, but you can also buy aftermarket CarPlay systems that you can stick on your dashboard for about $100, I think, a couple $100. So here's an example of what we do to give you a context of the app. This is our web dashboard. You can't really see it too well there, but that's like a typical run. It's got 76 deliveries, or drops we call them. That covers about 8 hours of a driver's time. In the old days, drivers would just do that with bits of paper, and they'd go around with their mailways and a sense of adventure and figure out where they were going. Now they have phones, so we can give them much more data. We can get real-time tracking, they can scan barcodes, they can take photographs. There's lots of stuff that they do in the app, and that's mostly what I work on. So this is some of the some app screenshots. Yeah, they do a bunch of stuff in the app, but we don't need all of that for CarPlay. We want to squish down the requirements of CarPlay to basically, here's where you're going, and here's what to expect when you get there, which is an address and maybe some notes about where you're going. Ooh, squishy. So to go back to these templates again, let's say you've got to decide which type of app you're building. Oh, sorry, I haven't mentioned templates yet. CarPlay uses templates, and you've only got certain templates available to certain types of apps. So there's some common ones that are available to all apps, but if you want to use the map template, you can only do that with a navigation app. No other type of app can use the map template. And conversely, if you want to use point of interest template, a map or a navigation app can't use that template. So you've kind of got to look at this and figure out what templates do I need to use, and therefore what kind of app am I actually building. And it gets even more complicated, because if you try and use a template in an app where you don't have the entitlement for that, it just crashes. I tried that, it just crashes out. So CarPlay is one of those things where you really got to read the docs before you start building to know what you're getting into, which is kind of annoying. And you need to do live testing, because things could crash. Even more restrictions. Driving task apps are restricted to using 2 templates in total in the hierarchy. So remember earlier when I pointed out that Zach's Petty app has a tab bar. Our app can't have a tab bar because it's a point of interest plus a tab bar plus like an information screen. That'd be 3 templates in your hierarchy, and it would just crash. In our case, that's actually fine. All we need is a point of interest. That does everything we need. But for some apps, that could be a real pain. Or for some sort of ambitions of what you might want to do with your app, that could be a real pain. So we know we're building a driving task app. We know now what templates are available to us. So let's build it. There isn't that much to CarPlay. That screenshot there, that image, shows every class that's available in CarPlay. There's about 3 dozen of them, and you probably won't use more than half in your app, no matter what you're building. So you can learn all about CarPlay pretty easily, and actually a lot of these are really similar. It's the same thing over and over again. So there's not a lot to it, which is quite good. Gives you, a small set of parameters to work in. So we'll get started. First of all, this is the coding bit. First of all, in your info P list, you've got to provide a delegate which is going to be used for when the CarPlay screen connects to your phone. This delegate will get called. Again, documentation gives you the XML that you want to use to set all this up. You don't have to fiddle manually with it. In our case, we got the CarPlay scene delegate. Is that what they called it? Yeah, CarPlay scene delegate. So we will set that up next. That connects to template application scene did connect. Gets called as soon as a CarPlay screen connects to your app, which either is because your app is open and you plug in or wirelessly connect to CarPlay, or when you tap the icon for your app in CarPlay to launch it. That's essentially the same as the application did finish launching with options that you get in an iOS app. It gives us 2 things, a template application scene and an interface controller. We store those in variables because we'll use those later. In the real app, I do a couple of other things here. I set up a service to vend data into this class, and I set up a timer to refresh that data every couple of minutes, but we don't need to worry about those. And on the previous screen, we had a set up interface function, and that's where we set up our interface, funnily enough. Notice that this is a function that's an extension of the CarPlay scene delegate. You might think architecturally you want to do this in a dependency or do it in a separate module or that sort of thing. Honestly, there's so little code involved in this, it's probably not even worth it. And also most of the logic is going to be held in the service that's providing data to this app. So you can test that as a separate thing. The UI part of it is so simple that I just kept it all in one file, and it's not that much code. So I would just leave it as an extension on that delegate. Architectural people will be like, oh, don't do that. But it's fine, it works. So that's how we create the template, and we use the interface controller that we previously stored in the variable to set that root template, and then that will then be used if that template does any events, like you tap a button or whatever, the change of screen would be done using that interface controller that you pass, that's saved in this extension. So next up, if you remember that our app deals with runs that the driver has and then deliveries within that run. So we need to check first of all that the driver actually has a run to use. They might not. So in our create template, it returns a CP template, which is an abstract class for all CarPlay templates. In this case, we're going to return, first of all, an empty state template, which here is a CP information template. That's actually one of the more sort of flexible templates that you get within CarPlay. It has quite a few things you can do with it. You can provide a bunch of items, which it will show in a list. You can provide actions, which is like essentially buttons. You can have like a refresh button or whatever. We don't. In this case, it's more just like a blank screen saying you don't have any information to show. But it's a good example of a common pattern that you see in all the templates. You have a title, and then you have some stuff in that, like an array of stuff, and then some actions. Pretty much all the templates look very similar to that. So that's the empty state. This is the point of interest state if you have data. Point of interest template is, I don't like the naming of this because it should be point of interests template, I think, because it's an array of multiple points of interest. But anyway, it's called point of interest template. And this is the same pattern again. It's a title and then an array of things. And in this case, the array of things is an individual point of interest. And they look like this. Again, it's got a title, it's got a subtitle, blah, blah. Point of interests have a location. They have to have coordinates because they're going on a map. And essentially what we do is create an array of a bunch of points of interest and give them all the data that's all vended from our data service. I think we put maximum 4 of these on screen, which I'll come back to later. And that's it. That's basically the data that we're going to stick onto the app. We're going to have a list of, here's the next 4 deliveries that you're going to be doing. One more thing we need to do though is to add user interaction. Adding a button is a little bit different. The previous slide was a little bit oversimplified because actually what we do is we create the point of interest and then you add a button to that as a CP text button. I don't think there's other kinds of buttons. Maybe? No, I don't think there is. I don't think you can have like image buttons or anything like that. And that's done as a sort of a callback. So in our case, the button is a directions button that takes you out to Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waze. So that again calls out to those other apps, passes them the address that you're going to, and then you can navigate to the address with your preferred navigation tool. And that's really the reason why this app is not a navigation app, because it's not doing the navigation for you. It's passing off the navigation to another app. And that's basically how you build everything in CarPlay. It's a bunch of templates, you stack them together, essentially in the same way as you do Swift UI views. You're composing things from smaller things, and when the data changes, tear it all down and rebuild it. So what didn't I show you? I didn't cover very much CarPlay there. We didn't use some stuff in this app, but essentially all the other things are created in the same way. UI navigation is done essentially in the same way that the button happens there, except you tell it to go to a different template rather than tell it to do some action and jump out to a different app. Navigation on the road is a bit different. If you have a navigation app, you can tell CarPlay that something's happening, like right turn in 400 meters. And even if you're in a completely different app on your CarPlay screen, like you're in a music app or whatever, it'll pop a little modal above your music app to give you those directions. That's kind of like complications, I suppose. So you can call out to do stuff like that in specific circumstances, but they're really locked down. And there's some other templates like grids as well, which is things like in the music app where you get your grid of album covers, which I think is pretty much the only place that you can do images within CarPlay. Other things you can't do. Templates are pretty restrictive. There's a lot that's not available to you, much to the annoyance of designers. Pretty much everything just takes a string. You can't format it in any way, you can't make it, you can't change the font, you can't change the color, you can't add images to it or SF symbols. Yeah, you're like Sideshow Bob. You're just getting thwarted at every turn, which is actually, I think, a good thing. Like, you don't want to have drivers seeing something on the screen and being like, oh, what does that icon mean? Or, you know, what's this image here? Keep it really generic across all apps. I think that's best for drivers. Be interesting to see if that gets loosened up a little bit with the next gen CarPlay. So how does it look? This is the end result. We have points of interest in a list, and they also get mapped onto the map behind. One place where there is custom code is those pins on the map. That's custom drawing to put a number inside a circle, so that number matches to the number of the drop in the list. You can see there that some text is clipped. So again, you don't get any control over that. Just clips the text. You can't squish the font size down a little bit or anything. But when you tap on one of those list items, you get the full text. And this is, I'm not going to say this is scrollable because I haven't tested that. Hopefully that'll be scrollable, but maybe not. Maybe it was just clipped at the bottom. And there's the directions button that we added. So yeah, is that it? Doesn't seem like very much. Actually, that's all the drivers need. And also remember this thing where we're limited to 2 levels of navigation. So there's actually not that much we can do, even if we wanted to. So you built your app. Next up, you got to test it. There's 2 ways you can test it, and both of them are hilariously broken. Like, I don't think Apple has touched any of this stuff for, I don't know, years. I think iOS 12 maybe was when CarPlay came out, or the new templating version of CarPlay came out. And I don't think they've touched any of this stuff since then. First of all, you can run it in the simulator, or when you're running your app in the simulator, you can add an external display, which is a CarPlay display. That will give you some options, basically the same as you get if you attach any other display in the simulator. Like if you've got an iPad app and you're testing with a second screen, it's the same thing. These don't work. Don't bother. Knob doesn't work at all. If you change the dimensions, you get what's at the bottom there. So you get a larger screen, but it just puts black bars around an 800 by 600. The top there is an 800 by 600 on a MacBook screen. It's tiny, but it's okay. You can stretch it and play with it. It's fine. But what you can't do in the simulator is any location stuff, Siri stuff, seeing how it reacts with other apps, stuff like that. So it's okay for like proofing your UI, but that's about it. There is also a CarPlay simulator, which is a separate tool that you get in the additional tools for Xcode package that you can download. What that does is actually connects to your actual phone. Your phone has to be connected wired to your laptop, so you got to plug it in. But if you do that, the CarPlay simulator looks like this and is essentially exactly what happens if you plug your phone into your car for real. And this one does work, like the knob on this one works. If you go up and down, it'll navigate around, which is very similar to how Apple TV works. And the good thing about this is you can, because it's running on your phone, you can test it with location services, with like a podcast running in the background and stuff like that. So you can mess around with the sort of constraints that are on any phone. One thing to note on here, which is kind of what I was mentioning right at the start about different capabilities of different devices. See those up and down buttons at the bottom there? So some cars, if the car can't scroll, like if it doesn't have a gesture to scroll, it'll put buttons on screen for you. You have no control over that. You just draw your list, and if it appears with buttons, it appears with buttons. So that's quite a good way to test. The best way to test, really, you've just got to get in your car and test in your car. Like my car. There we go, and it works. Obviously your car isn't usually in the office with you though, so you got to do that a little bit later. And that's it. Any questions?
I have several questions, but I'll start with the obvious one. Was this entire project just a way to get your company to buy you a test device?
They didn't buy my car. No.
All
But now that I think about it,
Yeah.
is it a tax?
You
Is
need
it a
a few
tax
different
write-off
ones
though?
to
If
be
we've
able
used it
to,
for?
yeah. Need a few.
Yeah.
Right, one serious question. The email to Apple to get the entitlement, how much detail do you have to go into? Like, do you have to basically write a business case and get them to agree to it, or?
I have to defer to Fletch for that one because he did the email.
I'll pass the microphone.
It was a website link that opened an email, and I sent an email, and about 8 weeks later, I still had no response. So I poked. Who's his TC? TC didn't respond, but someone else responded about 2 weeks later.
So TC responded.
So there is no process.
Yeah. So you're not like quickly spinning this up. You're not going to
but
do it
it
tomorrow.
also sounds like you're not having to pitch Apple your idea and get them to agree that it's legitimate first.
No one challenged me.
Yeah, which could be tricky if you've just like if your app is like you haven't really written much yet. Like if you've got just a skeleton,
Yeah.
you might not have much to go on to prove that. Yes,
Yeah, if you wanted to
essentially
prove
just an
out a
idea.
concept or something, who knows?
Were there any other questions in the room? Yeah.
Thanks, Baz. I've probably got a business question as well, though. Like, I had no idea it was so restrictive. And I guess from a business point of view, like, I'm wondering what the reasoning was for developing this, like as opposed to like a car mount kind of thing where you stick your phone on the dashboard. Is it for, you know, safety, insurance, all that kind of thing?
I can help there. Safety was one. Some of the enterprises that we're talking to about delivery, some of them actually stipulated that they didn't want drivers touching a phone while doing services. So this ticked that box.
Yeah.
As well as it's a cool gadget for marketing.
Yeah, it's good for marketing. And also it was, I mean, apart from the time lag to get approval for it, it's a pretty easy thing to spin up. You can proof it up. Took a day, I think, to just get a basic version up and running. So you can give it a try fairly easily and see, like, is this going to be useful to people? I should have looked to see if it was being used by people. Oh well.
Question over here.
Would it work if you had like a third-party card play device on your desk?
Yeah, should do. Yeah. I think the aftermarket CarPlay units, yeah, as long as you can power it up and it connects Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and whatever, it should be able to. Yeah.
2 questions online. Are there any special accessibility bits for CarPlay?
Nothing.
No
No,
accessibility.
I haven't seen anything about that at all.
Just the Siri integration then. And that's
Yeah.
about it.
Worry line drivers.
That's a fair point. And do you have any comments, etc., on unit testing for CarPlay?
Yeah, like I said, the UI stuff is so simple that you shouldn't really need to test it. But you could back it with like a view model to say what am I going to show, and obviously you can test that the same as any other code. So yeah, I would probably test it just that one layer deeper. I didn't write any tests for this. But,
You don't write tests at HTS, don't need that.
You
yeah, we do.
Are there any restrictions on what you can do on the iPhone when CarPlay is active?
Yeah, that's a good one actually. The guidelines say you're not allowed to put anything on your CarPlay app to tell the driver to go and do something on their phone. So you can't put something on the screen that says this feature's not available. Open the app on your phone to
Waze does
do
that all
this.
the time.
Does it?
Yes.
You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe the reviewers
Reviewers are definitely
sit there
installing
with
CarPlay
CarPlay
apps and testing them.
screens doing it. Yeah, so you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, it's actually one of the things that kind of surprises me that Apple doesn't lock out your phone when it's connected to CarPlay. I could probably see why, but true.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, there's guidelines about that. There is a document, a CarPlay like developer's guide, which is what those screenshots were from, and it goes into quite a bit of depth about those kinds of things that you should and shouldn't do, kind of like appendices to the App Store guidelines, I suppose. But yeah, how well those are enforced, don't know.
Any more questions in the room? I'll go another one then. I assume it's just included as part of your normal App Store bundle, so there's no separate distribution you need to worry about.
No, yeah, it's just part of the app. Yeah.
But your very first slide where you set the root template has error handling involved. What kind of errors do you get back from that? Or just in general, error handling on CarPlay, given it's a separate screen with a whole separate system?
Yeah, I haven't seen any errors. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it could disconnect. Like my CarPlay, my wireless CarPlay, very often disconnects the phone from the car in the McDonald's drive-thru. I know there must be a lot of like noise, like signals flying around in there, and lots of cars close together, I suppose. So it very often disconnects there. So I guess you could have things where it's disconnecting, connecting. It's not really an error, but things to react to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what errors you get. Actually, I just log them when I get them, and then never look at the logs.
Never leave the device. So you
Should
can
do
log
that as well.
So it says, is the documentation for this public, or do you need to get past the the entitlement bit first?
No, that's public.
Public?
Yeah, you can get that. There's a CarPlay. It's like developer.apple.com/CarPlay, I think, and it's on there. Yeah, it's just like one PDF document that's like, I don't know, 30 pages or something.
Sweet. If there's no more questions in the room, we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much, Baz.
Cool. Cheers.
If this works. Hooray! So that's a wrap on our last presentation night for 2024. A huge thank you to Ryan and to Baz for presenting tonight. A round of applause. So just a reminder of what's coming up. I did not put the Christmas party thing on there. I will pop that up back at the end if anybody wants to grab the QR code and register for that. Next week we've got our coding night on Wednesday the 20th of November. Guess who did not update the dates on the other slide, so this is going to be wrong. Tuesday the 26th of November, not of June, is the social night. Last Tuesday of the month, as always, Brick Lane Brewery. Massive thanks to our sponsors for 2024, to Mentor Group, who've provided this space, and to REA Group as well. Round of applause for those guys. Thank you very much. And that's a wrap. A lot of us will head off to a nearby venue to socialise a bit more after this. If you're interested in coming and you don't know where the Mitre Tavern is, just follow the crowd. Quite a lot of us will head there. And that's it. Thank you very much for coming for 2024. We'll see you at the Christmas party, or if you're not before, at coding night and the social nights. Christmas party is next month. Otherwise, we'll be back with presentation nights starting February. We usually take January off, so around February the 14th, I think it is, somewhere around there. Nothing else happens on February 14th, right? So we'll see you next year. Thank you very much.